All right, this is module 9 of Power BI course, and it covers Power BI draft reports, practicals, and the do's and don'ts in Power BI. This module will help to refine your skills for professional business intelligence solutions. You know, we used to say good judgment comes from experience, while experience comes from bad judgment and learning from it. So, throughout this module, you will learn the do's and don'ts of Power BI. So the module will cover how to create and refine draft reports, hands-on practical projects, and also case studies. I also take you through report testing, validation, and optimization. Like I mentioned, we'll look at Power BI do's, that is best practices for success and common mistakes to avoid. So at the end of this module, you should be able to design, test, refine, and even optimize professional Power BI reports following recognized world best practices. Okay, so what is even a draft report? You know, a draft report is a preliminary version of a Power BI report. Okay, it contains the initial layout, visualizations, and business metrics. The draft report is used to evaluate the structure and also identify improvements, and helps to validate user requirements before finalizing your report. So, like I said, it contains preliminary charts, even tables and KPIs, and it focuses on presenting key business information. A draft report can be modified, based on testing and even stakeholder feedback. It just serves as a foundation for the final report. Now, this is how the draft report workflows. First, you define your objectives, you import and prepare data. Then after that, you build a data model. Then from there, you create measures and KPIs. Then after creating your KPIs, you design your visuals. And don't forget to add interactivity. Then when you are done with all those, you review and refine. Then it is after the review of the draft that the final report is produced. Now, you may ask, if there is a final report, what is now the importance of a draft report? Draft report matters because it helps to test before committing. It will help you to catch errors early when they are cheap to fix. Then it will also help you to get feedbacks, from stakeholders. Don't forget, stakeholders can review a draft report and suggest changes before finalization. Okay? So, and don't forget that each version of the draft report improves on the last. So a draft report is not a finished project. It is a tool for learning and improvement. Now, how do you create your draft report? First, like I say, you define your report objectives, you import and prepare data, you build a data model, you can create relations between tables, you can organize data into fact and dimension tables. Okay, then after that, you create your measures and key performance indicators. Then that is when you now proceed to designing the initial report layout, then add interactive features, then you review and refine the draft to validate data accuracy. Now, what is refinement in the draft report? Refinement involves improving the draft report by enhancing its design, functionality, and overall user experience. Okay? Now, the activities that takes place in refinement of a draft report includes that you will review and validate data accuracy. You will remove unnecessary visuals and redundant information. If a visual, for instance, does not answer a business question, remove it. Okay? You don't have to just begin to add different kind of visuals that are not necessary. So you remove redundant information. You can also improve chart selection and visual consistency. Then apply appropriate colors, themes, and formatting. Okay, so then don't forget to add interactive elements such as sliders, filters, through features, etc. Okay, now why do we need to refine our report? When you refine a report, it will help to improve report clarity and readability. It can also help to enhance user interaction and navigation. It also helps you to align report with business goals. Okay. Now, what is a report testing? After you have drafted your report, you have your report. There's what we call report testing. Report testing is just the process of thoroughly examining a Power BI report to ensure all visuals, calculations, filters, and interactive features work correctly before publication. You test your report. And what do you test for? You test for visual accuracy. You ask questions like, do charts and tables display correct data? Are totals matching source systems? So this is what you look out for. Then you also test your filters and slicers. You ask questions such as, do they update all visuals properly? Do your filters and slicers update all your visuals properly? Then, is the filtering logically correct? So you look at that. You also test your navigation. You look at it, you check whether drill-throughs, buttons, and pages work as expected. Then you also look at your calculation fields, calculated fields. You look at your DAX, data analysis expression, right? You check whether it actually measures, the measures produce correct results, So that's it. So this is a workflow for it. First, you load your data, verify the calculation, you test visuals and interactions. Then after that, you validate results, then fix errors where necessary. Then you come up with a final review, then before you publish your report. Okay? Report testing is important too, because it will help you to detect and resolve issues before deployment, and it also help to improve data accuracy and report reliability. Okay. Now, report testing is different from report validation. All right. So validation is just a process of ensuring that the report accurately reflects the underlying business data and meets stakeholders' requirement. So that's validation. Most times, people use the words interchangeably. Report testing is different from report validation. Report validation focuses on confirming the accuracy. Okay, so you check for data accuracy, you validate data accuracy, you validate calculation using DAX. You can also check, go for validate relationships, and even validate your filter and slicer. Okay, then you have to avoid these errors when you are trying to validate. Avoid incorrect DAX formulas. Then check for missing relationships, duplicate data entries, or even wrong aggregation. Without validation of your validation of your report, business decisions may be wrong, and your reports can lose credibility. That is why it's important for you to validate it. Then after validation, we go to what we call report optimization. This is where you improve performance. Optimization focuses on improving the performance, usability, and efficiency of a Power BI report. So an optimized report loads faster, responds quickly, and uses resources effectively. Now, the techniques you can apply include that you remove unnecessary columns and tables, use measures instead of excessive calculated columns, then simplify complex DAX formulas. But don't forget to also optimize relationships. The reason why you need to optimize your report is because faster report loading and refresh times, and also better user experience and interactivity. So it can also help you to have improved scalability for large data sets and reduce resource consumption. Okay. Now let's talk about Power BI do's. What are the best practices for success? First, focus on clear data modeling. Then clean and transform data properly. Use meaningful KPIs and metrics. Then keep records simple and user-friendly. Then always use consistent design and formatting. Then don't forget, validate your data and use proper naming conventions. But the don'ts, common mistakes you have to avoid is don't overcrowd your report, don't ignore data cleaning, don't use poor data modeling, and don't write unnecessary complex DAX, and don't ignore performance issues, and don't forget to validate your data. Okay, then don't ignore user needs, don't leave unused fields in data model, and don't skip testing before publishing. Okay, so you can apply these principles to your own data. Create a draft report, test it, validate it, optimize it, then share it with stakeholders. Each project builds your expertise. Practice is not the thing you do once you are good. Always practice. Practice is the thing that makes you good. Thank you.